What is yours? I am struggling with a lot of guilt, anxiety, and panic attacks. I had an affair. The other man was my previous boss, still working for the same company just in different locations. I'm not even sure how it started because now after the fact people have pointed out things he was doing that I mistook for just regular kindness. I was very unhappy in my marriage and it had for the most part hit rock bottom. A husband who just wasn't there for me in so many ways. The other man knew I was upset on more than one occasion. He would say all the right things and started to give ideas how to get out of my marriage. He had been divorced after his wife of 22 years left him for another man. Venting texts, work frustration calls became more frequent and then we had to travel for work. My LH had a major meltdown when I was gone and the other man is where I found comfort. It just snowballed from there. I tried to end it my LH before he found anything out, as did the other man. His common-law wife intercepted some emails, confronted him and he told her he wanted out. The other man and I had planned an evening away. That was the night it went from emotional to a physical affair. The next day, the other man dumped me. He said he needed to stay her cause he couldn't be alone and knew I was not relocating for some time. I was crushed. I put my tail between my legs and went back to my LH. He found out of the affair within days and the crap hit the fan. My LH took me back, forgive and forget. But the other man still contacted me, came to see me to explain why he had dumped me, told me he had made a mistake and still loved me. I didn't know what to do or think so I continued to fake my way through my marriage and had random contact with OM. He then told me he was marrying his CLW. I was crushed all over again. But within a couple weeks of putting his ring on he was back to texting me that he had it all wrong. Then he said he was going to leave her cause he couldn't live without me. And the texts, calls, emails all became more frequent. I refused to see him until I was sure he was done her. Then she phoned my LH. He told me to get out. I packed my bags, upset but being encouraged by the other man that we would get through it and be together. I was really struggling, on the cusp of losing my kids. My entire family was coming down hard on me. Understandably because what was doing was stupid. My LH was furious but I knew he loved me more than anything and I started seeing him different. He had been responsible for half of the first round but he had done nothing but work his hardest to make us better. I found myself not wanting to hear the other man's negativity about what my LH couldn't do for me that he could. I felt torn between but my LH really did love me and I started loving him like I had for over 12 years. I chose to cut off all contact with and make my life right. The other man was shocked, very angry and persistent in trying to change my mind. I wrote a NC letter, spoke to my boss and co-workers saying I could have NC with him or anyone from his office. So now my life is an open book my LH and I am honestly going to do anything and everything I can to show my husband I love him. What I did was wrong and that we can grow through this. I know our marriage will ever be the same but I am committed to make it something better than it ever could have been. Us knowing where it broke down in the first place. So now with NC, me doing anything and everything each day to show my husband I do love him and I am never going to hurt him as I have up until now. I do feel remorse. I love my husband more than anything. I feel like a complete mess that does not deserve the love of my husband and children. I have to live with what I have done to my family every day for the rest of my life. I came on here to try understanding how my husband is feeling and find some constructive advice on how to try healing the hurt I have caused. Not to get judged, berated or to take shots from people that feel the need to project their own relationship anger on someone who joined to try make life better. I wanted to share what I have done, maybe help a few others understand how marriages get to this point. I did not say I placed all the blame on my husband. I am 100% aware that this was all mine doing but I also believe that I married an amazing man who I did take for granted and almost lost to my own selfishness. And I am determined to show him that I am in this all the way. He was not my fallback guy. I will continue to read on this site but I will refrain posting as I am beating myself up over all this so I don't need a firing squad to help. I wish you all nothing but the best in your own relationships and I know you will see over time through my husband's posts that we are going to be okay. Have a very Merry Christmas and be safe. Comments. I believe you were manipulated by your boss. You listened to the negative he said about your husband which I am sure made things worse in your marriage. But the way you treated your husband was horrible. You lied, cheated and manipulated him. Right now, OP can't believe a word you say. You got a little heat here and you bailed after 2 posts. You say you want to understand what your husband is feeling. Well, reading, yes, and getting some heat, will help you understand. You say you don't want to be judged. Your husband is judging you, rightly. You don't want to hear others' anger. Your husband is angry, rightly. So, in exactly what way would you like the betrayed husbands here to express themselves? Do you want to hear about the heart-searing pain when he first finds out the mother of his children and love of his life has defiled the bond between you? Or maybe it's the emasculating thoughts that he will have as his mind turns over and over. The images of you getting plowed by your boss, quite possibly doing things with him that you refuse to do with your husband. Maybe the shifting sand of his belief in you and your motivations for staying. My ally, there are so many sides to what your husband is feeling. It's like a great poisonous multifaceted diamond spinning around in his mind. Then there is the love that he still has for you. You can be encouraged with that. But if you are serious about understanding your husband, it's time for you to put on your big girl boots, suck it up, and get to work. You were strong enough to have the affair. Are you strong enough to deal with the results? OP responds, I am very committed to my husband. He will never have to feel this hurt again. When my husband asks any question or I see him just watching me for a moment, my heart squeezes so hard that I'm not sure I can continue to breathe. I keep feeling that he should hate me, scream and holler at me, tell me over and over that I don't deserve him loving me still, that my kids didn't deserve a mother who was so selfish. I wish every moment that I could rewind time and rewrite the past year. Heck, the last 5 or even 10 years. He has pointed out and stopped me from covering my face when we are talking, because I can't look at him or don't want him to see me as that woman. I know he always will see that woman, and all I want to do is try my hardest to make sure he knows that she is gone. I did not come back to him because things didn't work out with the other man. I chose to try healing my marriage, love and respect my husband the way I should have always. I want to do anything, everything and more to prove to him this is where I want to be. Maybe I have worded something wrong, but I chose to stop all contact with the other man. I wrote the NC letter and told my boss and coworkers I would have no contact with him or anyone in his office. Yes, he dumped me last spring, but it was not me who started texting and expressing regrets not long after. I think had we continued a relationship then, it would not have lasted even a month once reality hit. It is tough to explain, but we never really talked about how we would end up together. Living in diff towns, or even the matter of whether I could relocate at all. Away from my kids or moving then, it was all kind of in the now. No thoughts or talks about a future. The husband responds. 1. Yes, I feel extremely betrayed. 2. Yes, I do not know when I will be able to trust her again or believe what she is telling me. 3. I don't feel like her second choice anymore. I definitely did after D-Day number 1 when the other man dumped wife and I took her back. She could have been with him after D-Day number 2. He wanted to be with her, but she chose to commit to me and meet the conditions I required before she could move home. 4. I do not feel worthless and lost. I am a good man, a good husband, and a great father. I have my faults, of course, but I am confident in who I am. 5. I do love my wife. I do not worry about losing my kids. During the separation, 1 month of her in another house, I had the kids 5 days a week. I would never give this up. I do not feel trapped in this marriage. I chose to stay with my wife and she chose to come back to me. I did feel the desperation at first though. Actually, before I found this site and took control of my life back. I owe people on here a lot. 6. Unloved and lied to. She needs to continue to prove her love for me through actions and not just words. Part of me is waiting for it to happen again, but I don't fear it anymore. 7. Again, I do not feel worthless. I am a strong, loving, good man. It's not the physical part that is the hardest for me. It's the lies, the constant diet of lies I was receiving. I never imagined that this woman I loved for 14 years was capable of doing this. I have told her that it is like she took the memories of that girl, woman from me, or that the woman I loved never existed at all. This is the biggest challenge for me, to see which version of my wife is the real one. The woman she was for 13 years or the woman she was for a year. I noticed a change in her when the consequences of the affair started to sink in. When I first told her to leave, she was still planning on continuing the affair. After she was exposed, it was hard for her. She lost her home, lost her kids. I had them Monday to Friday, and she was getting crap on from all sides for what she had done. Then I did a 180 after reading on here. She started to reach out. I was done with limbo at this point. I couldn't handle it anymore. One night when she was over, I gave her a choice. Commit to me, our marriage, and agree to the things I need to begin again. And see. Transparency. Or divorce. She chose me and asked for my forgiveness. I'm not sure when she felt she turned around. I thought my wife was beyond temptation as well, because I thought she would never leave. I got lazy in my marriage. I never learned how to be the husband she needed. I am not taking blame for the affair by saying this. I am taking responsibility for my 50% of the marriage breakdown. I am pretty sure even without the affair we were headed for divorce. After 4 years she had it. I was not happy either, but I honestly thought that this was what marriage was like. It wasn't bad, but it wasn't good. I learned a lot and have become a better man after D-Day 1. She has to become a better wife now. It is her turn to learn what I need as well. I should say though that there is at least one person beyond temptation. Wife responds, it is going to be a steep road, but I believe we can climb it together. Forgot the most part. I had completely shut my friends out of my life since day 1 of the affair. My best friend, who has seen me through ups and downs since grade school, didn't even know. When I finally told her after D-Day 1, she went from furious, almost punching a hole in the wall, to sobbing tears because she said she was so disappointed in me. She said she didn't know who I was because I wasn't the same one who she stood next as our vows were said. Only one friend of mine has been negative on husband for a long time, so I have cut her out. I am worried how his friends will act to me because On has already cold shrugged me. I said hello in the grocery store and he stared right through me and walked away. I am prepared for some choice words the next time the guys get together, a month later. So, I think for the most part our has been going fairly smoothly. I am doing everything I possibly can to reassure my BS that I want to be here. I chose to be here. I never want to be with anyone else, and I am sorry beyond words for all the hurt I have caused him and our family. There is of course bumps and tough times, tough questions, tough answers, tough emotions and days, but there is also sometimes when I feel like we really will get through this and grow to a new couple. But here is my question. It is almost as though my brain does not process things properly as to understand how the choices I make will affect him and us. I say this because when something happens, a trigger or event, I automatically go into battle mode. My heart and brain got back and forth on do I tell him? If I don't tell him, what if he finds out? Is it something that will upset him? Is it even worth telling him, cause maybe it is minor and he really doesn't care to know these things? How do I bring it up or tell him so I upset him the least, and I'm scared to tell him because I see the hurt in him about stuff and it kills my heart every time when I tell him. How will it affect the rest of our evening or day? I always push through this battle and tell him because I am being honest and need him to know I am in this all the way. I cannot lose my husband. I love him and I know what I have done and will live with the guilt forever, but I am determined to never hurt him like this again, and if it hurts me to do that, then so be it. I deserve the world of hurt. So yesterday, this is what happened. In the morning when I stopped at a gas station to grab a coffee on the way to work, a guy in the parking lot stopped to ask me if I sell seed. I work in agriculture. I sure do, I told him. What are you looking for? I realized I thought I knew him, so I gave him my card and he introduced himself. I do know him. I haven't seen him in prob 15 years, but we had a little laugh how time has passed. We went on our way, me saying call the office and we can discuss his seed options. A few hours later I was uptown washing my company vehicle and was on the phone with my H when I got a call waiting beep. I thought the hash was that of our daughter's school, so I quickly took the call. It was this man from that morning asking to see me about the seed. I said I would stop by his office or he could come over to mine. My H called back immediately, concerned that maybe something bad had happened, that the school called, but I explained it was this man I ran into that I knew and hadn't seen in so long. The hash was 1 digit off from the school. No worries, we went about our day. Well, a few hours later the guy came by my office. We were in my office, I was explaining how our C packages work and it was very casual. Then he asked how my family, mom and dad, was. I told him that my parents actually divorced 6 years ago and that they were very good. Then he reached back and pulled my office door closed. I found it odd. He then asked me if I was still married. Sitting there with my very sparkly wedding ring in plain view and a wedding pic of my H and I 6 away. I said in a very direct voice, I am very much still married. He said that he had asked around before he came to the office and was told we were separated, so he was wondering if I maybe wanted to go for lunch sometime with him. I said, yes, we're separated for some time but have worked through that and are very committed to our marriage, so no. Lunch was not going to happen. Awkward. He didn't seem fazed at all by what I had said, so I just went straight back into talking about work. I wrapped it all up and said, so think about your options for seed and call the office if he wanted to book some. He said, good to see you and we will chat. Immediately after he walked out the front door, I went into my co-worker's office and told him what had happened and that he could deal with the guy going forward. He technically doesn't farm in my service area, so my co-worker should have been handling his account anyways. Prob an hour later, he called the office and he asked to speak to me. Admin put him through and he booked his seat, then asked if I knew of any single woman in the area, and if I do, let him know. I just sort of laughed and said that wasn't part of my job. I then told him I had given his info to my co-worker and he would follow up as he did not farm in my territory, or his other option was to deal out of the other office in our area. He said okay and I said, thank you, have a great day. Hung up. All afternoon I was in a panic mode trying to figure out how this all came up, how to tell my H, how would he react that this had happened, did I handle it properly? Was I firm enough? I waited until after dinner at my in-laws, after my son's hockey practice and kids to bed, until I told my H. I immediately saw a change in him as I told him, and he asked why I hadn't told him sooner. I explained that it was stressing me all day, but I didn't want to tell him until we were alone and could discuss it. He was upset that I hadn't told him immediately, and I was trying to explain why I waited. He kept saying he told me a million times to just tell him when things happen and was upset that I had waited. So, this is why I ask if I don't process things right to understand the consequences of things like this. Should I have told him right away? Yes, I guess I should have. What made me choose to wait? I didn't want to bring it up to ruin our family time, and I felt it was something we needed discussed between just us. I did not tell him because I didn't want to. I just wanted to tell him the right way in the right circumstances to discuss it. What will I do next time? If he really wants to know immediately, I will tell him. I will still struggle with it cause it's not whether I should tell him, it is just how I tell him. And so, the story continues. Yesterday the guy who had come to my office and asked me for lunch last week now called me. He asked if I was hungry and if I wanted to let him buy me lunch. I immediately said no, then changed the subject and asked if he had decided on which seed he was going to buy for his farm. He said not quite and that he would like to chat some more about it that afternoon. I just said okay, have a good day and got off the phone. I instantly texted husband and said for him to call me ASAP. He called within a couple minutes and I explained the entire situation to him. He asked for the guy's phone number and would like to call him. I gave him the number and a few minutes later husband called me back. He said that he had called the guy, introduced himself and said he did not appreciate him asking his wife out for lunch when I had been quite clear that I was married and not interested in anything with him. The guy insisted that it was strictly business related and apologized if he had upset anyone. I felt much better after husband called and told me this as I was confident that would be the end of it all. No luck. I returned from lunch about half an hour late and asked my co-workers if he had stopped by. No, he hadn't. I was in my office on a call, just finishing a conversation with my dad about this guy's nerve asking me out again. When he walked in, I grabbed my phone, said excuse me and bolted to the upstairs of our office. From up there I texted husband to tell what was happening, called my dad back and said, "What the hell do I do?" I called downstairs to my co-worker and asked him to deal with him. I told him he would wait for me. I messaged my admin and asked her to call the phone and page me to a holding call so he would leave if I was busy. I was in a total fluster because I had no idea what MSG was not coming across to him. I even took a moment to text my competition in the business the guy's number and told him to call him because I couldn't help him. Competition was happy I would refer a guy to him. After about 15 minutes or so he left. I came down from upstairs and he had left me a note with his card to email him the info about the seeds. I asked husband and my boss what they thought I should do and both suggested I just forward the info to my coworker with an email telling him to contact him ASAP. I did this and then my phone rang. It was the guy again. I did not answer it, sent it straight to voicemail. He left me a big, long message apologizing for making me uncomfortable, and that it was not his intention for anything other than strictly business. He said that the competition had called him but he would still like to do business with me so he would wait for me to return his call. I sent a text saying that I had forwarded his info to my coworker and he would be in touch within the day. So now hopefully the guy gets the message because I am not sure what else I can do. The most frustrating part to me is that I cannot believe that someone would be so ballsy to ask a married woman out. Not once but twice. But on the flip side, I guess I carry the badge of a cheater and there will be guys that still think they will have that chance. I am glad I told husband right away and I am very happy that he called him immediately to set it straight that we were very much still married and he didn't appreciate what this guy was doing. I know it takes time but I really feel like we took a bigger step together to start making our marriage have some trust again. I did have a physical affair. It was emotional for 10 months with one night we had slept together. 3 months and then a couple of short visits of making out. So yes, I am assuming this creep is after one thing but I am really trying hard to give off the message that I am setting up boundaries and hedges where I maybe never considered they should be before I realized what I was turning into. If that makes any sense. I am much more conscious of what or how I say things to guys. I'm relearning. It did sit wrong with me at the time of the affair but I also had been in a very dysfunctional marriage for 4 years so I think it just made it easier to completely cross the line. My mind then was so caught up in the moment and all the good feelings and reinforcement. It really was like a drug to me. I would be doing really well and then something would trigger me again to the OM and the rush would let me disconnect from my home life. Now I look back at it and I regret every moment of time I wasted on the OM but I also feel like some part of it all had to happen. Only the first tiny step, just so my H and I could see what we were doing wrong from day one of our relationship. I wish I could take it all back every day. It physically makes me sick when I think about how I justified the lies and faking who I was every day to one person or another. So now my commitment is to try healing what I have hurt. Make myself a better strong wife and mother and spend every day showing my husband and family how much I realize it was all so wrong. I have tough days, I won't lie. Some are really hard but I push through them seeing what I have is really what I want and need. By tough days I mean guilt for the most part. I see how much hurt I have caused in my eyes. I think about what all went on and think I don't deserve the unconditional love of my kids because I was not a good person for a long time. I think about what would have happened if I hadn't realized what I was losing and had given in to the other man's pleading and anger at me breaking it off. I am always aware of who is around me and every word I say so it cannot be taken the wrong way but a lot of what I never saw as crossing the line is all around me. Simple jokes implying, or even the fact that I still work for the same company as the other man, his wife and his father so I have to work around not doing a business through the location. It complicates simple things sometimes but I know it is a must. The tough days are when I am exhausted, work is stressing me and I am unsure if I go on a big rant or download to my H. Will he get upset with me for being negative? I guess it is a long process of learning for all of us and like I said, I push through those and concentrate on love. Husband responds, about 2 months out from D-Day, 2.5 months into our my FWW has been perfect so far. We are going through the his needs her needs book together and doing lots of reading and learning about affairs, marriage, etc. As far as I know there has been NC. I have found nothing suspicious and I snoop a lot. Probably too much. My wife has been perfect and lately it's me screwing things up. About the last week I started to feel weird. I don't know how to explain it except it's like there are walls up when my wife is around. I have trouble looking at her, talking to her, and showing love and affection is very hard. I still try and sleep together every night though. Of course, she doesn't want to sleep with someone who is shut off to her. Then I get upset because I want to sleep together. I don't want to feel like this. I love my wife, I really do. We tried to talk about it last night but then I had to stop because I just didn't want to. It's starting to affect her because she is giving so much and not getting what she needs from me in return. I think I just have to push through these times and show love, affection even at times I don't feel it. I do want to stay married to my wife. Weeks later, my wife showed me a text she received today on her work phone. It was blank but was a new number from the community that the OM lives. He would have had to get a new cell number because he quit his job and they had been communicating through their work cells during the affair. We did not know for sure it was him, so my FWW boss phoned the number and told us he got the OM's voicemail. I wasn't sure if I should call or not. Triggered me bad when we were discussing it, so I wasn't ready to deal with it. Now we know it's him, what should we do? We sent the NC letter and my FWW swears she never broke it. What should I do? I emailed his wife. I have no idea if they are still together after the affair, but I have her info from that time. I also threw in a couple tidbits that I have since learned about the affair. He could easily lie about a blank text, but he'll feel the stung from this new info. Almost half a year later. D-Day 3 was last night. I received a phone call and an email from OMW. My STBXW admitted they had been talking again and she was in love with him. I seem to be okay with the marriage ending at this point, but I'm devastated for my 6-year-old girl and 4-year-old son. Looking like I'll be staying with them in the home for now, so that's something I can take comfort in. I was a big believer in but now I don't know if happiness in a marriage is ever really possible after an affair. My comment: do you think OP's wife is in another fog, or she truly wants another man? Part 2 will come tomorrow morning. Let me catch a quick break and I will finish